When the dust finally settled on the catastrophic cosmic war, the Titanomachy, the Olympian gods emerged victorious. Zeus claimed the heavens, Poseidon took the raging seas, and Hades descended into the suffocating underworld. The universe was theirs, but immortals are easily bored. Establishing a divine empire requires devastating war, but entertaining the triumphant masses requires a savage spectacle. To celebrate his dominance and test the fleeting strength of mortals, Zeus demanded a tribute of sweat, agony, and unbreakable willpower. This was the bloody genesis of the Olympic Games. Forget the modern vision of peaceful global unity and friendly sportsmanship. The very first Olympic Games, held in ancient Olympia, were an unyielding crucible of raw survival. They were a brutal simulation of military combat, where the line between ultimate glory and agonizing death was razor thin. Stepping onto those sacred sands meant fighting for the gods, fully prepared to leave your blood in the dirt. The journey to Olympia was a dangerous trial. Every 4 years, a sacred truce, the Chariot, was declared across the violently divided Greek city-states. But this truce did not bring lasting peace. It merely paused massive wars so warriors could travel to engage in concentrated sanctioned violence. Approaching the sanctuary of Zeus, the air grew incredibly thick. It smelled of roasting flesh, burning fat, and dried human blood. Hundreds of oxen were slaughtered upon the great altar, their blood staining ancient marble, their smoke rising to feed the heavens. The noise was absolutely deafening. Thousands of aggressive spectators, merchants, and gamblers camped in terrible conditions, enduring scorching heat, suffocating dust, and rampant disease just to witness the spectacle. In the center of this chaotic frenzy stood the athletes. They were not pampered professionals, but hardened, deeply scarred military men. Competing entirely naked, stripped of armor and dignity, they coated their bruised bodies in pungent olive oil and rolled in abrasive dust. This was a dark preparation for pure physical destruction. The absolute pinnacle of this ancient brutality was the Pankration. Translated as all force, it was a nightmarish fusion of wrestling, boxing, and no-holds-barred street fighting. There were no weight classes to protect the weak. There were no time limits to offer mercy. There were no rounds to catch your breath. The fight ended only when one man was knocked unconscious or raised his finger in desperate submission. The rules were terrifyingly simple: no biting and no eye gouging. Absolutely everything else was perfectly legal. Joint manipulation, deliberate bone breaking, intentional strangulation, and vicious kicks to the spine were standard encouraged tactics. The arena sand quickly turned dark crimson as teeth shattered and flesh tore open under the blazing sun. Imagine standing in the roaring crowd, facing a massive Spartan giant trained since childhood to kill with his bare hands. You lock together in a violent clash of sweaty limbs. Fingers loudly snap under immense pressure. Shoulders are brutally dislocated. Athletes frequently died right there in the dirt. The most legendary tale involves a fighter named Arrhichion. In the agonizing final moments of his championship match, Arrhichion was caught in a lethal, crushing chokehold. As his vision faded to black, his trainer yelled from the sidelines that a noble death was better than a coward. With his last ounce of fading consciousness, Arrhichion violently twisted his opponent's ankle, snapping the bone completely. The excruciating pain forced his opponent to submit, but Arrhichion could not celebrate. The immense strain of the chokehold, combined with his sudden movement, snapped his own neck. He died instantly in the hot sand. Because his opponent submitted first, judges dragged Arrhichion's lifeless corpse to the center of the arena and crowned the dead man an Olympic champion. That was the terrifying devotion the ancient gods demanded. If Pankration was a horrific test of combat, the Tethrippon, the terrifying 4-horse chariot race, was a brutal test of survival amidst chaotic destruction. 40 massive, heavy wooden chariots violently crowded the narrow starting line. As bronze trumpets blasted, madness erupted. Blinding dust kicked up by 160 thundering hooves made forward visibility almost impossible. Charioteers wore no armor, desperately balancing on rattling wooden platforms as they whipped their horses into a frenzied panic. The most lethal area of the track was the tight turning post. To win, you had to cut the sharp corner as tightly as humanly possible without destroying your wheel. Chariots violently collided at high speeds. Thick wooden wheels shattered into deadly flying shrapnel. Drivers were thrown high into the air, landing directly in the unforgiving path of stampeding horses behind them. Men were brutally crushed under heavy iron hooves and splintering wooden axles. The sand was painted with blood of men and beasts. And the cruelest aspect of this deadly event? The charioteers who bled in the dust were usually hired slaves. If they miraculously survived the carnage and crossed first, the ultimate glory, the sacred olive wreath, did not go to them. It went directly to the wealthy aristocratic owner of the horses, watching safely from the shaded stands. The final event of these blood-soaked games was the Hoplitodromos, the race of heavily armed soldiers. In a chilling reminder that these games were merely preparation for real warfare, athletes ran at full speed across the scorching sand wearing 50 pounds of heavy bronze armor. Thick greaves, massive round shields, and restrictive bronze helmets completely blocked their peripheral vision and trapped the suffocating heat of the Greek summer. Many strong men violently collapsed from severe heat exhaustion, their bodies failing entirely under the crushing weight of the divine metal. When the brutal games concluded, survivors stood battered, scarred, and physically exhausted. There were no silver medals. There were no second places. You were either the glorious champion, instantly elevated to a living demigod, or absolutely nothing. The winner received a simple wreath woven from the sacred olive tree of Zeus. But that fragile crown meant eternal immortality. It meant your legendary name carved into solid stone, meals paid for by your proud city for life, and earning the eternal respect of the terrifying gods above. The thick blood spilled on the sands of ancient Olympia was a violent offering to Zeus in the blazing sunlight. But while the king of the gods reveled in the brutal triumphs of mortals above, a much darker, far more obsessive drama was unfolding in the pitch-black depths below. True mythological power is not always won in a dusty arena surrounded by thousands. Sometimes, it is violently stolen in the dead of night. What happens when the terrifying Lord of the Dead decides he wants to take a queen? Next time, we leave the scorching heat of the ancient games and descend directly into freezing, suffocating darkness to witness the terrifying obsession, the devastating grief, and the brutal kidnapping that plunged the entire world into its very first, unforgiving winter.